Hey, it's Jacob. Welcome to this new video. And today I want to talk about how I learned AI because I don't have like an AI programming background. So there are a few things that I learned about learning AI that I would like to share with you. So the first thing to know is there are two types of approaches for learning anything. There is the employee approach to learning, and there is the practitioner approach. And it's not that one is better than the other, it's just that it's a different approach based on what you want to do. And what I did in my case here, I chose the practitioner approach because I didn't need to be an employee. I worked for clients as an AI practitioner, not necessarily as an employee. So I didn't really care about the employee approach. But it's always good to know about the difference between the two because that depends on what you want to do, right? There is not a better one, but if you can make the difference, then that means you can optimize for the one that you want to do, right? And it's going to be a lot easier and a lot faster to do because you know what to look for, what to learn, and what you need to do. So the first one here, the employee, it's going to be about the bottom-up approach. So what do I mean by bottom up? It means you learn a lot of different things that because you don't know the type of employer that you're gonna have, and so you want to advertise like a lot of different types of knowledge so that they can hire you. So that means you're gonna learn basically linearly about a lot of different things. But you're not gonna necessarily go in depth because what you want to optimize for is the number of things that you have in your resume, basically. So the number of things that you know about and kind of like know the idea, but not necessarily know them in depth. So not necessarily know what it's about, what it is used for, like how they work, but just kind of like know the ideas. That is the employee approach. So it doesn't necessarily has anything to do with solving problems. It's more about like knowing things. That's a better way of putting it. The practitioner approach is top-down. So for example, for me, when I had clients, the clients had problems. And from there, I needed to solve those problems. And I started learning things in order to solve those problems. And that's it. I only learned those specific things in order to solve the problem. And then I moved forward. But in order to solve the problem, you're not gonna go it's not gonna be shallow. You're gonna need to go in depth about that specific problem. And usually those two things are very, very different because the type of problems that you have in a company or, that a client has, or even you, if you have that problem and you're solving it for yourself, is gonna be very, very different than the ideas or the knowledge that you've acquired if you went that route here, if you went the employee route, because it's just different types of things. Usually problems that people have, they're not like on the internet, or you're not gonna find them as like something that is extremely easy to find because or that the educational system is gonna teach you, just because like if that was the case, then they wouldn't have that problem. So think about that. Like that's the easy problems that are being solved and that are being like explained by the educational system. People don't have those problems because they are easy to find and they are solvable. And most likely people have already solved those problems. So that's why we need to know about like the difference between the two. And so basically as an employee, the problem is there is a little bit of a like you're overeating because if let's say like the knowledge that you're acquiring is a meal, then you're kind of like overeating the meal, and you need to kind of like eat as much as possible, and that's why like for me at least, like that wasn't like the perfect way of I didn't really like that thing because that way of learning, because just like if you overeat when you're not hungry, then you become fat. It's not necessarily a good thing to have like a lot of knowledge. It's becoming fat is good when like theoretically, because like you have more food in case like you don't have anything to eat anymore. You can last longer. Sure, but like in the real world, like being fat, I mean, I don't need to argue that it's not necessarily a good thing, right? It's kind of like the same idea for knowledge. We need to consider knowledge acquisition as a meal that we need to eat or that we want to eat, and it's a good thing to eat a meal, right? It shouldn't be something like a chore. It's a chore if you are being forced to eat the meal and if you're eating too much of it. So that is kind of like the difference. And for me, like if you're a practitioner and if you want to have like this approach, I would advertise like being I would recommend like having like a lean approach to problem solving, right? So basically starting with the problem in mind, and then for let's take an actual example, like let's say you want to learn programming. Well, for programming, don't learn programming in order to learn programming, because programming is not an end in and of itself. You learn programming in order to solve a problem. So for example, that could be like if you want to create an AI with like a neural network approach, well then learn programming in order to create neural networks. And this is very, very specific compared to just learning programming. Like the type of knowledge that you're going to acquire if you do that compared to just learning programming is completely different. And most likely, if you're just learning about programming, you're not going to, after even 1, 2, 3 years, you're not going to know anything at all about programming for neural networks. So it's always for something. It could be programming for like an Excel project that you want to do for your work. Let's say that you're working with like an Excel sheet and you're doing some type of either a dashboard based on the data, or you're doing like actual modification of an Excel file every day or something like that. Then if you want to create a program that does that for you, then you can look at how to like basically do that, but like only do that, right? And it's going to be 10 times easier and 10 times faster and a lot more fun, quite frankly, to have like to learn those like programming in order to do that, right? Because you have the end in mind, you know what you're looking for. And or that could be also like programming in order for you to like improve your workflow, basically like create your own tool in order to basically move forward as fast as possible when you're like doing your work. So what I'm saying here is if you have that approach, then do the opposite of what the educational system is doing. Basically, you use what you need in order to filter out the knowledge instead of the knowledge filtering out the people. That's what the educational system is doing, right? Like you have the teachers, and then the teachers are basically doing what they are doing, and then some of the students are not able to follow what they are saying because they don't put in an effort. The teachers don't put in an effort for the students to understand what they are saying, and quite frankly, sometimes it's also like it's almost a good thing for the teachers to be bad. Let me explain what I'm saying. If the educational system is filtering out people based on the knowledge, like basically like people that can acquire like the knowledge when it's badly explained, then that means one could argue that means it's a good filter, right? A good filter out a lot of people. That could be like one. It's not necessarily a bad thing, is what I'm saying, to have bad teachers. Of course, like that depends on who you are, right? Like if you're the student, well, maybe it's a bad thing for you. So that's something to keep in mind and try to reverse that if you are the practitioner, meaning filter out the things that are not useful for you in order to achieve your goal, right? So filter out the knowledge and based on like also the quality of the knowledge. So you're the filter, and if you see that something is badly explained or if it doesn't make sense, then you filter out that thing. And it's a lot more empowering and a lot more fun to do it that way. So that's why, for me at least, like I really like the practitioner approach, And I'm not really too kind on like the employee approach. And I don't think it's really useful for me if I'm doing things by myself or for a client, for example. So that's it for this video. If you want to be part of my contacts, click on the link in the description, and I create free exclusive content for you. So thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.